She is someone who's fond of fairs. She is presumably fond of Ghalib. So one can enjoy her poetry without elevating her to the status of a great poet.
You see, Atal, can I just say, Atal Bihari Vajpayee is also a poet. He also writes very bad poetry. But when I told him, Atalji, aapki poems are very bad, so he says, which prime minister before me has written poetry?
Yes.
So you can say, how many actresses write poetry? So you must give her credit for that.
Yes.
It may be bad, but at least she wrote it.
Oh. So there's a question.
Mike, then I...
Yeah. So it goes back to my childhood. As a young boy, my father would always tell me as to how beautiful her feet were. I don't know, it's a fascination which I also developed.
I saw it in Pakiza, I think. You know.
Yeah, that's one of the very famous dialogues also. And it has fascinated me. So I want to ask you whether really she had the most beautiful feet.
But I think it's partly obviously because of the line from Pakiza, you know, the aapke paon bahut haseen hai. But also because a scholar in Delhi, Professor Patricia Uberoy, has written a paper on the podoerotics of the Hindi film about foot fetishism in Meena Kumari films.
Wow.
So we've seen it in Pakiza, and we've also seen it in Sahib Bibi aur Ghulam. When he first comes to see Choti Bahu, he looks at her feet.
That's right.
And he's too frightened to look up at her face. It takes a long time for the gaze to travel upwards.
But that's a Bengali setting, you know. It's not like pan-India, you know.
Is it?
Can you hear me? Okay, I'm Professor Sitesh Dutt, and my feeling is I'm a film lover, and I've seen Meena Kumari's films. To me, the central issue is the exploitation of the woman by the man. I feel the woman is a more precious species, although I am from the other sex. And Meena Kumari's life to me has been a classic example of how women have been mistreated, if you want to put it properly. And that exploitation continues to this day with the gang rapes and things, and the basic distrust or not giving women enough importance. The new heroines, I think, it's now the circle has traveled downward, and now women have started exploiting men. My question to you was that is it any different from the American heroines who have also been similarly exploited by directors? The film industry is notorious for that. Is it the same as in Meena Kumari's case, or is there a difference, and the American woman is a stronger personality? I would not cry about this thing, but give the men back in their own coin.
Actually, I'll take that immediately. I don't think Meena Kumari was mistreated or exploited or in any you know, as the lady behind you was saying, you know, you know, this is a woman who married a celebrated director, you know. Mahal was a celebrated film. She left her husband. She saw whoever she wanted to see. She was going out. She was in a relationship with people. She chose the films that she was going to do. I think she does represent an independence of spirit and action and life that few women in that scenario did, you know. I mean, I don't know, you know, I think Madhubala, as far as I know, had a bad marriage with Kishore Kumar, but there was no question of leaving him, you know. This woman left her husband and led her own life, you know. I don't think this is about exploitation. Would you say, Vinod, that she was exploited or mistreated, Meena Kumari?
Meena Kumari exploited or mistreated?
Well, I mean, some people get very upset with me. I say she was exploited, but she also allowed herself to be exploited. I mean, there's a interesting dichotomy there. But you see, when her sisters and all exploited her, but she also exploited her sisters in the sense that she went to live with them after she went out of Kamal Amrohi's house. But later on, she went and lived with other people also. So, I mean, this whole question of she knew she was being exploited. She was perfectly aware she was being exploited. And maybe self-exploitation was a kind of indulgence. I think this happens in the film. You see, one thing about them, film stars, is I know nothing about money, they will say. And the money is looked after either by the husband or, say, Kamal Amrohi, and in her case, the sisters. And she found that when I told you when she died, she didn't have enough to pay the hospital. So I think that she was very bad at housekeeping. But I think she told Gulzar once that these kind of things don't interest me.
Hello. I do not know whether she was born and lived in a chawl. All I know is that her house is very close by. She was just 2 minutes away from our house. And as little children, we used to go and gawk at the house. I also disagree with Mr. Mehta that one of the reasons that she was, self-destructive is because she started from very humble origins and went high. We have very many people in the world, in fact, quite a lot of them, who have started from the ground and gone up, and they haven't self-destructed. My third point is, I think it is quite wrong to call her a flawed heroine. More correct would be, the correct word would be a tragic heroine. And the last point, in Meena Kumari, her house is still there, I think, I don't know who lives there, but in Meena Kumari, the real and the real merged. There was an amalgam of both, and I don't think she and the audience were able to separate the two. Thank you.
You know, I think one of the things I would say in that response when you're talking about flawed characters would be the way you would look at it, you could say something like alcoholism. Is it a flaw? Is it a disease? You know, how is it that we interpret these things? And it's these shifting perspectives. How would we say, is she exploited? And ultimately, it has to be partly how she sees it. You know, I think I wonder why flawed heroine would be the right.
I just want to say that if I have called her flawed, I think my biography may have many faults, but it is quite sympathetic to Meena Kumari.
But you know, I would actually.
I mean, I keep calling her my. She may have been flawed, but it's a very simple. I thought it's a sympathetic book. Maybe it has many other faults. But I like Meena Kumari. I mean, the book at least shows that I like it. And if you read my dedication to the book, it says, Meena Kumari, wish I'd known you. That's what I've said in the...
But, you know, I read it differently. I thought you'd call it flawed because of her real name, Mahabjeen, and I thought you were referring to the flaw in the moon.
No,
so,
no.
in the moon. So you see, I
I'm referring to
overinterpreted your use of
She
flaw.
was flawed.
That's
We
what happens when you watch too many Hindi films, you know.
No, I think we come back again. She was flawed to the extent that she allowed her cinema life to merge with her private life. And she was told by this whole thing that she's the great tragedian. And if you were making a film which was a tragedy, you went straight for Meena Kumari. If you look at all her films, I think you can only find one, where it's a comedy. Most of her films are tragedies. That's not a coincidence.
All right. I'm really sorry to announce, this will be the last question for the panelists. So kindly please help yourself.
Yeah, I feel maybe Meena Kumari was a victim of circumstances, but it didn't stop her, or did it really stop her from being an enigma or the tragedy queen or whatever we portray her to be? And it is really material whether she led a very small life or a big life, but she led a meaningful life, I felt.
Oh, quite,
Inspired.
absolutely. She
Yeah.
did lead a
Do you
very
agree?
meaningful life, you know. I mean, whether it was flawed or
It's
incomplete.
immaterial whether it was flawed, she was a tragedy queen or what. But I felt, though she was a victim of circumstances,
Oh,
that she
it was very
in.
rich life, but I think by and large it was very unhappy life. Her private life was very unhappy. That, I mean, there can be absolutely no doubt about that she had a very unhappy private life.
Okay.
I think the couple of months when she was with Amrohi and they used to talk on the telephone the whole night, those were happy days. But by and large, she had a very unhappy life.
What about her time with Dharmender?
Huh?
With Dharmender?
Yeah, that was hidden. That was not an open. I mean, while they were having their affair, I mean, they were. She was not. He had 2 children and he had a wife when he came to Bombay. So she picked him up, as it were. And there was one film, I remember its name, Kala Patthar ya Lal Patthar. Phool or Patthar. And that film puts Dharmender right on top. That film really with Meena Kumari, and she got him that role. And that made Dharmender, that was the film turning point in Dharmender's professional career, and she got him that role.
Right.
Phool or Patthar. There's Kala Patthar also one film.
That's Yash Chopra.
Kala Patthar also. There might have been a Lal Patthar
That's
sometime,
Amitabh
we don't know about.
Bachchan.
Lovely.
So thank you all, and whether we think Meena Kumari was flawed or not, the fact we're still talking about her 40 years after her death, I think is the big point.
Hello? Oh, finally it works. So let me take this opportunity to thank Mr. Vinod Mehta, Mr. Mahmood Faruqi and Rachel Doyle. Thank you so much for joining us. One thing I just wanted to say, I was actually completely into the conversation that you were having. I being 23-year-old, I haven't seen her in real life. I should have been born like twice over. But till date, we talk about her. So my end point would be, whether you like her, hate her, you just can't forget her. And she is one of the standstones of Indian cinema, so I think she deserves a huge round of applause. Thank you very, very much for joining us. And we would also like to thank our presenting sponsor, the Lodha Group, our studio partner, Aditya Builder Group and Yes Bank, telecom partner, Vodafone, bookstore partner, Crossword, partner for beautiful hair, Dove, Kid Session partner, HDFC Home Loans, partners in excellence, Brookborn, Taj Mahal, a sound partner, Bose, hospitality partner, Trident, our partner, Montegrappa, Times Now, and Radio Mirchi. Lastly, the Times Literary Carnival is an initiative by Times Red Cell. Alright, so for the people out here, a very special announcement. We're going to have an author book signing show at the Crossword Zone, so make sure that you go down there. And the next session is about Mills and Dooms, Do Romantic Novels Ruin It in Real Life by Malobika Sarkar, Fahad Samar and Nandini Krishnan. That'll start in the next 15 minutes. So I hope to see you here. Grab a cup of coffee, enjoy yourself, and welcome once again to the Times of India Literacy Carnival 2013. Thank you.